Hey, Richard. Great to be here. Thanks.
Great. So tell us a little bit about your story and we'll get started.
Sure. So I'm a residential real estate agent in New York City. So when you see all the TV shows and you think of apartment towers and things like that, that's the kind of property that I'm selling, although we do it in a very different way. But our day-to-day business is helping people buy and sell apartments rather than standalone houses like you might see everywhere else.
So today we're going to talk about you did an amazing thing of having a sales team that produced 150 million in sales. So talk to us about that. What was your key to your success?
Well, what I would say, Richard, is that we did $150 million of sales in 2024. And for those people out there who are familiar with the real estate market, which most people who are thinking about buying and selling homes or own a home, 65% of Americans own a home. They would have known that the real estate market last year was one of the most challenging with mortgage rates and things like that. So we sold $150 million, but what I'm really proud of, and my team, we have a team of 8, is that we were able to do that, which is our very best year in such a challenging environment. And that was 2024 after what in 2023 was our best year also. So we've been able to perform at a very high level in very challenging environment.
So what were some strategies that you guys used?
Well, what I would say is, there's the focus of the team is very much on the people more than the property. It's very much focused on, okay, who are we working with? What are they trying to accomplish? And, we're very fortunate that the buyers and sellers we work with, for them, many of them, it's not, they're more able to focus on those types of what they really want to do in their life rather than what are mortgage rates. And we're trying to keep that conversation about trying to develop a vision, whether they're looking to buy or whether they're looking to find a buyer for their apartment. We're really focused on creating that vision for them and making the process as smooth as possible. And ultimately, about 65% of the transactions last year in New York City were all cash, believe it or not. So mortgage rates don't become as a big a factor here as they are in other places. And even when mortgage rates were 2%, Richard, the number of deals that were all cash here were 40 to 50%. So people are really focused on trying to do something. They come to New York with a big goal, big vision, and we're trying to help them accomplish that. I don't know if that gets into too much detail, but we can go wherever direction you want to go from there.
Yeah, you could go deep if you want.
Well, a lot of people, if you go on any real estate website, what you'll notice is that the questions that they might ask are very cut and dried. They're not questions about the people. They're questions about what do you want to spend and all the details of a home. We're focused on the people. So everything we're doing is about getting to know the people better, getting them comfortable, and making sure we're speaking to them in a way that helps them get more comfortable all the time. Because what happens is if you focus on just what I call the nuts and bolts, people get very tense. When they're often, even in New York, people are spending perhaps the most money they're ever going to spend on one single asset, which is their home. And so people get very stressed out. We're meeting people at their most stressed. So the work is getting beneath that and helping them get relaxed, getting educated, making sure that we anticipate what their questions are. And a lot of that is we're a team of 8. So we're focused on, okay, what can we do each day to kind of help our buyers and sellers get more comfortable with the market? What's the market? What is it? How is it responding to our listings? Do we need to reduce the price? Is there something else we need to do? So we're trying to focus on the things we can control every day, which is communication, the way we engage, the relationship. And ultimately, those little steps have led to us helping our sellers feel more comfortable making decisions if they have to lower their prices, or for buyers, just helping them know, hey, I can buy now, and later on I might be able to refinance at a lower mortgage rate. and I'm going to be able to lock in at a lower price today versus tomorrow. And New York City is different than a lot of markets in that the pricing actually came down for the last 2 years versus other places where the prices have gone up. So it's been an interesting time for us to do what we do.
They say there's no overnight success. When you guys did that goal, when you reached that goal, the 150, did you guys do that also in 2023 and 2022?
So we've been growing. So 2024, our $150 million closing mark was about, I want to say it was about 30 million higher than it was in 2023. Now, our team, over the last 20 years, I've sold about $1.5 billion of real estate. So we've been growing, not every single year, but we've had some really terrific years, and to be able to outperform the market in 2023 and 24 was really something. The way I would respond to your question a little bit is that we do take time to set really specific goals that we think are achievable and that we can measure against on a quarterly basis, so that how are we doing? How many listings are we trying to get? How many contracts are we trying to get signed? What's our sales volume on a quarterly basis? So the more we get, they call it smart targets. It has a lot to do with, is it measurable? Is it achievable? Can we really talk about it, put the numbers around it? And then when we hit these numbers on a quarterly basis as a team, we do take the time to celebrate those wins. And certainly right now, where we're looking back on 24 and saying, wow, we did great. All right, it's time to get to work. We do get to look and see, how do we do against our peers? But meaning that we're the number three group in the entire company, which is 2,500 agents. And we don't usually do that the rest of the year. The rest of the year, we're focused on ourselves and our goals. And then once a year, we look back and say, okay, how do we do across our company? And why should people want to work with us? And one of those reasons is that we've really outperformed our peers.
It takes strong leadership to reach that type of goals. What do you have to say about that?
Sorry, what was that question?
I said it takes strong leadership to reach those kind of goals. So what would you have to say about that?
Well, as far as leadership goes, over time, it's become clearer and clearer. The more I support the team and the more I really help them grow professionally. Every single person on our team had their best year last year, not just the whole team as a whole. And I've just found it to be more and more satisfying to be able to train them. And I think as far as leadership, you're saying strong leadership. I think the best way to be a leader is to talk about the issues that you're having as a professional, and don't pretend like you have everything figured out. That you're working through the things that you're gonna, basically the same things they're working on are the same things I'm working on. So every time I'm trying to teach a lesson, how can you overcome this objection with sales? How can you do this? I talk about either a time in the past when I failed and I figured it out, or what I'm actually struggling with right in this moment for my own sales business. And I think that's really what strong leadership is.
How do you keep your team motivated?
Well, when we set their goals for the year, we really talk about what's motivating them. What's their why? Why do they want to be in real estate? What's motivating them? Maybe they want to have an independent business that they're really proud of. And so we really lean into helping them answer those questions, and then helping remind them all the time, hey, you're doing this. We're like helping light that fire inside of each of them. And it's a unique answer. So the way you keep them motivated is, you're doing great. You're hitting your numbers. Hey, you're not hitting this number. Let's, like, on a weekly basis, meeting with them one-to-one to make sure that they're not veering too far off track, right? If you're on a diet and you have a bad week of eating, right? Like, you just want to catch it before it gets too long down the road, if that makes sense. And so we just keep moving them back to the goals and focusing them, help refocusing them. And in doing that, it also helps me stay focused on what's important to me. So I always have to be at my A game to be help them as much as possible. And for me, what motivates me is to see us be a successful team. That's really become more and more the motivator, more than my name and lights. When we have a great year as a team, it makes me feel really great.
Hiring, when you hire someone, it might be a gamble. So how do you make sure that you get the right person in your team?
Well, I would say it goes without saying that I've made a lot of mistakes hiring over 20 years of being in real estate. And so usually what at this point, we've tried to be a little bit slow to hire and very quick to fire. Meaning like when we realize it's just not a good fit, we're like, hey, this isn't going to be a good match. It's probably better if you move on. And it often has nothing, it's not me or it's not the person. Sometimes it's just the match. But we really try ahead of time to meet with people and see if our visions are aligned, if our energy is aligned. We want to make sure we're like a good energetic match that we're going to be pushing in the same direction. Are they a team player? Are they highly motivated? Do they care really deeply about the people that are in front of them? Are they really more interested in helping than it's making it about the client more than anything else? And so the more we ask good questions and we get a little bit of different opinions from the team on whether this would be a good hire, that's tended to be help us have the most success. But we've had team members that have been on the team for 3 years, 5 years, 6 years. So people really have thrived in our team setting.
Do you guys have a sales process?
Do we have a sales process? Of course, we have a sales process. Yeah. I mean, when we're working with buyers, there's a whole intake form. The way I describe it is that we call it the magnetic method. And it works whether you're a buyer or whether you're a seller. It really just has 4 pillars. The first is we want to help activate the magnet. So we're talking about getting clear on what that why is for that buyer or seller. What's motivating? What are they about? The clearer we get there, it starts to get the engine on, so to speak, gets the magnet on. And then the next step is polarize. So we're helping polarize that, kind of being a little provocative, asking tough questions, asking awkward questions, but creating the conditions so that it kinds of pairs away all the things that aren't the answer. And it makes that magnet stronger. And then the next step, of course, is where we're amplifying the signal. We're getting that magnet stronger. We're really starting to get the ball rolling. We're really starting to understand. We're doing the showings. Again, we can get into a little bit more of detail about what all each of these is. And then the final one is really attracting. So we're trying to make this easy for buyers and sellers. We want that house or that buyer to be attracted much more easily. This shouldn't be super hard work, Richard. This should feel easy. This should feel fun. As stressful as people think buying a home or selling a home can be, we're trying to simplify the process and make it easier. So we can go into we can go in any direction you want to talk about our process, but that's kind of it in a nutshell.
What are some lessons that you learned along the way?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I would think the biggest one is clear communication can solve all problems, right? Like if you're trying to figure out an issue, if it's a hard conversation that you need to have with a client or with a team member, you just got to do it. You can't wait. You can't let it fester. You've got to have the conversation. We've had team members or clients who are like, you know what, this just isn't working. We don't have a good working relationship. It's clear like there's some trust issues we need to work through. And either we work them out or we shake hands and we part ways. But either way, it's like there's so many hours in the day and we want to work with people that we know we can help. And if we can help work through the issue, which a lot of the times we can, then it makes for a much better outcome. So I think that's a huge lesson that you can solve anything in communication. And that works both for the team and externally. And I would say another lesson that I've really, and I touched on it a little earlier, is like as a leader and as an agent, you don't have to know all the answers, and you definitely you don't have to be perfect. You have to be willing to say, I don't know, or I can find that out. But it's about being transparent with your client, saying like, hey, I don't think this is right, or I don't know the answer. Let me go find this out. But I think probably the most important one, and this kind of goes back to communication, especially when you have incredibly savvy buyers and sellers in a market like New York, is that you need to tell it like it is. So I like to say you can be kind, don't be nice. And what I mean is being kind, it can be tough love. Being kind, if you can say something with love behind it, even though it's not something that somebody maybe wants to hear, they know the intention is right. And you can say, look, I really care about you. I want to help you buy or sell this property, but we need to have a real conversation around this. You want to buy it for this? It's not going to happen. We need to increase the price, and this is why. It's about building enough trust ahead of those conversations so that the kind but tough conversation works. But if you're just nice, you're telling people what they want to hear, it never, ever works. So that's probably the most important lesson that I've had to learn. Sometimes I have to learn it again. It's not about being nice, it's about being kind.
Can we go back a little bit about the sales process you were talking to us before? So if you could touch a little bit more points of what you were talking before.
Yeah, with the sales process, sure. So a lot of times when people call, so I want you to imagine it's like, somebody emails you or texts you, hey, I want to buy a property. And as an agent, you're like, I'm so excited, it's going to be this great commission, and everyone gets excited. And instead of slowing down and saying, wait a minute, let's set the right foundation here, they rush into it and they just start sending buy side listings, homes to the person. What they really need to do, and this is part of what we call the activate, is they sit down and they really get to know the buyer. What are you about? I just want to get to know you, because the better you know the person, the more you're going to be able to just have your own professional experience come into play. When you see a property, then you're like, oh, that might work for Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so. And if you didn't slow down, all you are is like a order taker. You're not actually being an advisor. So when you slow down, you sit down in an office, you have a proper intake, and you get to know the person. That's how you activate a buyer, because you're starting that trust building right off the bat. And it's not like a lot of buyers out there, and I've done the research, they don't hold real estate agents in high esteem. And so if you just start sending them listings, it's all about the transaction. For me and for our team, the activate, this big part of our magnetic method is about, it's about the transition, right? It's not about the transaction, it's about the transition. And so that is really the most important part of activating, because otherwise there's like this little noise under the surface where people are still a little scared, and they haven't talked to you enough, and you haven't slowed down to say it's okay to be scared. Because once you make it okay to have all the crazy feelings that people have when they're stressed out about buying a home, that helps it go away. So that's activation. The second piece, like I said, was polarize. And so the way we help people polarize, I touched on it, asking, kind of making uncomfortable questions. People think they know what they want to buy. I want something with this many bedrooms and this location. What they realize when they start looking at homes, there's a problem. You see this home that checks all the boxes. I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but it checks all the boxes and you still don't like it. You're like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on? So often what happens is that people think they know what they want. They have this idea in their head, but they haven't actually tested it in real life. So when I say polarize, using the metaphor of the magnet, it's a matter of it's actually about testing it. And all of a sudden you realize, wait, this doesn't work for me. And we figure out the way to kind of cut through all the noise is to start getting offers in for people. So we say, hey, if something checks enough on your list, let's make an offer. And then when the seller responds, you don't have to think about whether you like it. You just know in your gut. And if you don't respond, you're like, this isn't that important to me. Then you know more information. It's not about what you thought you liked. It's actually about what your heart's telling you, right? So it's this polarizing process is it's actually it's a little more neck down than you might realize. But it's building that trust with people, making sure they understand this guy really knows what he's talking about, and going from there. And the amplify part of our process is where we're kind of going through more and more. And what happens during this time is that both buyers or sellers and our agents start to have ideas that are out of the box. Like, oh, maybe I just saw this property It's not in the neighborhood where Richard wants to buy, right? It's not in the neighborhood where they said they wanted to be. It's actually, bigger or smaller or renovated or not renovated. It's something different, but it just spoke to me when I saw it. I said, Richard should see that. And so there's this sort of dance that happens where it gets clearer and clearer, where you might have an idea, you know what, let's look in this other neighborhood. I don't know why, but I was driving or I was in the shower. I was like, maybe we should look at something different. So it becomes this more exploration where you're having just a little more intuition that's coming from area, it's like magic almost. And you start to get a little bit better sense that you have to trust the universe a bit, if that makes sense. So that's kind of what the amplification piece is. And then ultimately, the attract part is that we've made it much easier. We've helped clarify the vision for what someone's looking for all along. It starts with this first draft of their vision, and then over time it gets clearer and clearer. So by the end, you have a really good sense of what you actually want, not what you thought you wanted. And so you hear people say that there's no inventory and mortgage rates are high. They're giving all the reasons why it won't work. They're focused on what they can see. I'll believe it when I see it. We're flipping the script. We're like, you know what? You're going to see it when you believe it. And so we're trying to build your belief that this home is possible or that this buyer is possible. And that's really where the amplification and the attraction piece comes in at the end, where all of a sudden it's like, it's going to happen. We just have to kind of stay tuned, tune our antennas to it. And again, it's harder to get into the weeds about it because these transitions from one step to the next are fluid. And sometimes you have to back up a little bit and then go forward. But ultimately, it's like keeping those four pillars in mind gives you the mile markers so that you're getting closer to it. And you can kind of tell, okay, I skipped the activation part. I skipped it. And then all of a sudden you're like, I tell my team members all the time, you didn't properly activate this client. You didn't sit down and have a real conversation with them. You would make things so much easier for everyone if you just sat down and had like a heart to heart with them again. Reset the table. Sometimes you have to go through a little bit, back up. So I think the process is actually much more people centered than people think. And the sales process it can be messy, and it doesn't have to be, like people are very focused on being efficient. I tell them, like, let's be effective. Let's be effective. If it takes a little bit longer, that's okay. If it takes one showing, that's okay. It's about the people, and it takes however long it takes.
What would be one advice you would have for someone who wants to scale their business to the next level?
If someone wants to scale their business to the next level, the advice that I would always offer is set your goals simple, something that's achievable, okay? And then make sure your process is constantly improving. That you're aiming for this thing, you can sort of, they talk about the wish fulfilled, feel that feeling that you've already achieved it. Get yourself really into the space where it's the end of the year and you've hit your goals, and how does that feel? And then focus on, what can I do today? There's always something you can do right now in the service of your vision and your goals. And if you just do that and rinse and repeat over time, you're going to see more success.
Where can people learn more about you and follow you?
Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn. So if you look at Scott Harris on LinkedIn, you'll find me talking about real estate all the time. You can also go to Harris Residential, which is our website, and you can find all the listings that we're working on and how we're talking about the New York City real estate market. You can sign up for our newsletter there. And if you go to Instagram, you can find me at Scotty Harris, SCOTTIE Harris. And yeah, that's it.